In the year 2000, archaeologists opened a sealed room at the heart of an ancient sacred site. Inside was a skeleton, and wrapped around 1 foot, still in place after 1,000 years, was a turquoise anklet. That foot had 6 toes. Not a wound, not a deformity someone tried to hide. 6 toes, deliberately, carefully honored, in the most sacred room archaeologists had ever opened at that site. This isn't the only case. On the other side of the world, in one of the driest deserts on Earth, ancient rock art shows the exact same thing. Hands and feet, 6 fingers, 6 toes, carved into stone thousands of years before anyone wrote it down. The sites are called Pueblo Bonito in Chaco Canyon and the Atacama Desert on the coast of northern Chile, 2 ancient cultures, thousands of miles and thousands of years apart. Both left behind proof of the exact same rare human trait. So what actually causes this? Why did 2 unrelated ancient cultures, separated by an entire hemisphere, both treat it as something worth honoring instead of hiding? And what does the real science say about who these people actually were? 3 real answers written directly into bone and stone. First, the biology. Having an extra finger or toe is called polydactyly, and it's not some ancient mutation lost to time. It still happens today. In about 1 to 3 of every 1,000 births. It's usually caused by a change in a single gene called GLI3, one of the genes that tells the developing embryo exactly where to stop building fingers. Get that signal even slightly wrong and the hand keeps going. It runs in families. It shows up across every population on Earth. And it means ancient humans, going back tens of thousands of years, were also being born this way at roughly the same rate people are today. And it isn't evenly spread across the world either. Among people of African ancestry today, it happens in roughly 1 out of every 143 births. Among white populations, it's closer to 1 in 1,339, almost 10 times rarer. There are even different versions of it. An extra digit next to the pinky is the most common form. An extra digit next to the thumb is rarer and shows up more often in different populations entirely. This isn't one trait. It's a whole family of related ones. Now the first real case. Pueblo Bonito, the largest and most important great house in Chaco Canyon, New Mexico, built starting around the year 850. In the year 2000, anthropologist Patricia Crown re-examined 96 skeletons excavated from the site decades earlier. 3 of those 96 skeletons had 6 toes. That's about 3%, more than 15 times the rate seen in Native American populations today. And every single one had the extra toe on the same foot, in the same position. And they weren't buried like everyone else. Crown found that people with 6 toes were consistently linked to the site's most important ritual rooms and buried with high-status objects like turquoise. That anklet from the opening wasn't a coincidence. One individual was found with an anklet on the 6-toed foot and no jewelry at all on the other, as if that specific foot was the one worth decorating. The second case comes from the opposite end of the Americas. The Atacama Desert on the coast of northern Chile, one of the driest places on the planet, home to the ancient Chinchorro, hunter-gatherers who fished these shores for thousands of years. In 2018, researcher Vivian Standen and her team studied 75 rock art sites across this desert and found images of hands and feet with 6 digits. Then they checked the actual skeletal record and found real Chinchorro remains that matched. The art wasn't guesswork or symbolism. It was almost certainly drawn from real people the artists actually knew. People living in their own communities, born with 6 fingers or 6 toes worth carving into stone. The Chinchorro are already famous for something else entirely. They mummified their dead, deliberately, starting around 7,000 years ago, making theirs the oldest known intentional mummification practice on Earth, even older than ancient Egypt's. A culture that already treated its dead with that level of deliberate, careful attention is exactly the kind of culture where a rare trait like 6 fingers wouldn't be quietly buried and forgotten. It would be noticed and remembered. So why would 2 completely unrelated ancient societies on opposite sides of the world both choose reverence over rejection? Researchers have a few real theories, and none of them involve anything supernatural. The first thing researchers had to rule out was coincidence, that the 6-fingered rock art was just abstract decoration, not a real depiction of real people. That's exactly why they cross-checked it against the actual skeletal remains and found genuine physical matches, not just imagination. In small, close-knit communities, a trait that runs in families and repeats generation after generation doesn't look random. It can start to look intentional, even chosen. something worth building meaning around. Stand-in's team also raised another real possibility for the Atacama cases: environmental exposure, like natural arsenic in the local water supply, which is still unusually high in that exact region today. Neither theory cancels the other out. Genetics could explain why it kept appearing in the same families, while the culture around it explains why, instead of being hidden, it became something carved into rock and buried with turquoise. Here's the part that connects directly to today. If you or someone you know was born with an extra finger or toe, the odds are it traces back to that same GLI3 pathway, the same biological switch that ancient humans carried too. It isn't rare in recorded history either. Anne Boleyn was rumored to have had a sixth finger, though historians now think that rumor was likely Tudor-era political smearing rather than fact. The baseball pitcher Antonio Alfonseca genuinely did, and pitched a full career in Major League Baseball with it. Today, it's usually just a minor surgical procedure if it's addressed at all, but for most of human history, it was never something to fix. In at least 2 ancient societies we now have real proof of, it was something to honor. So, go back to that sealed room in Chaco Canyon. A single turquoise anklet, wrapped around a foot with 6 toes, placed there deliberately, over 1,000 years ago. Thousands of miles away, in one of the driest deserts on Earth, someone pressed a 6-fingered hand into pigment and left it on a rock wall, so it would still be there long after they were gone. They didn't have the word polydactyly, or the word GLI3. They just had a person in front of them, born a little differently than most, and they made a choice about what that meant. In at least 2 places on 2 different continents, they chose to remember it with honor.